Okay, this is the start of our presentation about students with diverse abilities. This presentation was created by Carly Lauder, Bradley McClellan, Paige Blanton, Emily Wilson, and Megan Tipple. Okay, let's get started. There we go. Okay, so you might be asking, what are diverse abilities? Well, there are two major sectors of diverse abilities for students, and that's multiple intelligences, which we'll explain more of what that is later, and disabilities, which is rather self-explanatory. So schools must have methods to adapt to students for their different needs and abilities. Now, of course, this isn't without controversy, and differing opinions across the board. So, yeah, So what are multiple intelligences? Well, the psychologist Howard Gardner proposed this theory a long time ago, that your linguistic and analytical abilities are not the only types of intelligence, but those are the most important ways to most schools. Those are the only ones they really focus on. So if that's not your best way of learning, you might struggle more. So he believes the different types of intelligences to be verbal, linguistic, logical mathematical, spatial, bodily kinesthetic, musical, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and naturalistic. So that's a lot, and there's a lot that goes into each of them, but verbal linguistic is more about you learning through hearing and words. Logical mathematical is through numbers and math. Spatial, I believe, is bodily kinesthetic is like touching and doing. Musical is, of course, through music. Interpersonal and intrapersonal have to do with people. I believe interpersonal would be, a lot about other people, and intrapersonal would be more about yourself. And then naturalistic has to do with nature. So you might know a lot about trees, flowers, plants. And all of those can be useful in different ways, but they're not all focused on at school. I can't remember the last time I had a lesson about naturalistic, unless I was in an ag class. But my math class had nothing to do with that. English, science, even though you could connect science and English to the nature, they just don't, because that's not what the schools prioritize. So Gardner's main point was that there are many different ways to be intelligent, but schools only care about traditional ways. And he believed that students could be more successful if schools would expand. So there are two sides to this argument. And so people who believe that they should is because it'll help students that have less traditional intelligences do better. It will take more effort on the part of teachers and staff and educators, and that can be hard on them. They've already got their plates full, and trying to cater to each student with all these different learning abilities could get chaotic and confusing, and it might do more harm than good for the class as a whole. And there are lots of people who criticize this theory, the multiple intelligences theory, and say that it has no place in the classroom, this is why it's not more prevalent. It's another one of those things you have to weigh the pros and the cons and then make a decision on what will be best for students overall. We can continue as we are, which is the focus on linguistic and analytical, or we can try something new, and maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't, and that's why a lot of people are caught in the middle. Let's try it. There we go. Okay, and then there's students with disabilities. So special education is for students with disabilities, and there are a bunch of different ways to help the kids with disabilities, and a lot of us may not know a lot about that, but surely we've all seen the special education program at our own respective schools, and they're all a little different, but they all do a lot of the same things. So They use a lot of assistive technology with devices and services to help those with disabilities. In more of your learning disabilities, students will get an IEP, which is a special learning plan where they can get some one-on-one tutoring or certain adaptations to help them through their school day. And in my opinion, those are really good for students. But once again, they take a lot of resources, because if you have to have special learning plans for so many students, they need lots of special attention, and the staff might not be able to handle it in your understaffed schools with large classes. That could get quite difficult. So the law is required to teach children with disabilities in school. They cannot be excluded from school due to their disability. You cannot bar a student from school because they have a disability, which, yeah. So there's lots of laws on this protecting their rights, and these are documented here. They have to make a special learning plan for the student with a disability, no matter how severe, because every student has a right to education. But there is, believe it or not, there's controversy for this, because some parents don't believe that special ed kids should be taught with typically developing children. So the parents of kids without disabilities worry that the curriculum is going to get lowered, or that their kids aren't going to get to learn as much because they're adapting it to students with disabilities. And then some special education educators, they worry that full inclusion may result in inadequate special services for students who have special needs. They worry that their students aren't going to get all the help that they need and deserve because it's, air quote, easier to just put them with typical developing. And then classroom teachers are complaining that they are given inadequate resources and training to deal with students with disabilities. So some people believe that special education students should be with normal kids all the time, as much as possible, just to help them get the full school experience so they don't feel excluded, which is a nice thought. But then there are others that don't want special education students with typically developing students at all because they think their needs are too different and they shouldn't learn together. When really the best solution is probably somewhere in the middle. When they can be with the other students, they should be, but there are times that they will need special services from special education educators. Okay, so in conclusion, multiple intelligences theory can help us cater to each child's strengths. Children with disabilities deserve a quality education as well as with the necessary adaptations. Students may have all different abilities, but it's our job as teachers to help each and every one of them succeed. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. I hope I made it clear. If you have any questions about the presentation, feel free to email me. Thank you.